谴责。赖总统在第一时间已经指示国安与国防等相关单位严密的应。
Moving on, and US President Donald Trump is set to unveil new tariffs on trading partners, but assures the public that he will be very kind in addressing what he calls unfair trade imbalances. These could trigger fears of a global trade war and retaliatory measures from countries like China and the EU. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, says the EU has a strong plan to retaliate if necessary, though it prefers a negotiated solution, warning that US tariffs could drive inflation and hurt American consumers. In response to potential US tariffs, Vietnam is also slashing duties on key imports, including cars and agricultural products, to avoid being targeted. Meanwhile, Taiwan is drawing up plans to counter the tariffs, particularly in the semiconductor sector, and is increasing investments in the US to reduce the impact of the levies. Here is what Donald Trump, White House Press Secretary, and Ursula von der Leyen have had to say on the matter.
We are going to be very nice by comparison to what they were. The numbers will be lower than what they've been charging us, and in some cases maybe substantially lower, but we sort of have a world obligation perhaps. But we're going to be very nice. Relatively speaking, we're going to be very kind.
Everybody's out. It's Monday. We have another big week. On Wednesday, it will be Liberation Day in America, as President Trump has so proudly dubbed it. President will be announcing a tariff plan that will roll back the unfair trade practices that have been ripping off our country for decades. He's doing this in the best interest of the American worker.
Europe has not started this confrontation. We do not necessarily want to retaliate, but if it is necessary, we have a strong plan to retaliate. And
moving on, and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang is on a 3-day visit to Moscow for strategic cooperation talks, a trip overshadowed by uncertainty around talks to secure a ceasefire in Ukraine and US President Donald Trump's criticism of the Russian and Ukrainian leaders. The Chinese Foreign Minister also dismissed the notion that Trump is trying to support Russia in order to set it against China, condemning such ideas as a relapse of obsolete confrontational and bloc thinking. Wang further said that current global conditions obliged big powers to act as stabilising factors, so it was encouraging that Russia and the United States had moved to improve relations. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said at a meeting with the Chinese counterpart that the cooperation between Russia and China was a stabilising factor in global politics. The Chinese leader also reiterated how Xi Jinping has been pushing for a greater involvement of China in peace talks since the early days of the war, which marked its 3rd anniversary in February. Amidst the ongoing strikes, meanwhile, German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock accused Russian President Vladimir Putin of playing for time in negotiations over the war in Ukraine. She further added, Ukraine is ready for an immediate ceasefire. It is Putin who is playing for time, does not want peace, and is continuing his war of aggression, which is a violation of international law. That was from Baerbock, who said in a statement shared by her ministry. To the Middle East, and the Israeli military has successfully intercepted a rocket launch from the northern Gaza Strip, with sirens sounding in Sderot and nearby communities. No injuries or damage were reported. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reversed his decision to appoint Vice Admiral Eli Shavit as head of the Shin Bet security service. This move comes after reports surfaced about Shavit's involvement in protests against Netanyahu's judicial reforms and his critical stance on US President Donald Trump. Netanyahu's office said that after further consideration, he would explore other candidates. Shavit's appointment had sparked controversy, particularly due to his support for the 2022 Israel-Lebanon maritime border agreement, which Netanyahu had opposed. As the political situation evolves, fresh protests continue in Jerusalem, with mass demonstrations against Netanyahu's judicial overhaul disrupting the city and intensifying public opposition to his government's policies. Staying in the Middle East, an Israeli strike on Tuesday killed 3 people in Lebanon as Israel targeted Hezbollah officials in the second such strike on southern Beirut during a fragile 4-month ceasefire. The attack came without warning during the Eid al-Fitr Muslim holiday, marking the end of the Ramadan fasting period. It struck after Israel also raided Beirut's southern suburbs last Friday after issuing an evacuation warning. Lebanon's health ministry said the latest strike killed 3 people and wounded 7 others. The top 2 floors of a multi-storey building were destroyed, with debris covering the streets and panicked residents pouring out of their homes as rescue workers helped the wounded. In a joint statement with the domestic Shin Bet security agency, the Israeli military stated that they targeted a Hezbollah terrorist who had recently directed Hamas operatives and assisted them in planning a significant and imminent terror attack against Israeli civilians. According to reports, a source close to Hezbollah has said that the strike targeted Hassan Badr, Hezbollah's deputy head for the Palestinian file, who was at his home with his family. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has condemned the strike and called on his country's allies to support Lebanon's right to full sovereignty. Prime Minister Nawaf Salam also said the attack was a clear breach of a ceasefire deal that largely ended more than a year of hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah. Without identifying the alleged Hezbollah operative, Israel's military said it acted to eliminate him and remove the threat, just days after striking Beirut's southern suburbs in response to rocket fire from Lebanon, which it blamed on the Lebanese militant group. Meanwhile, Hezbollah lawmaker Ibrahim Moussawi has said that the Lebanese authorities must make the international community bear its responsibility and take the highest level of measures to guarantee the safety of the Lebanese people. A massive